much longer is this picnic?
ありがとうハ
I'm not hungry!
ンマーありがとうハ
How many times do I have to tell you freaks? I don't want a goddamn sandwich!
ンマーありがとうハンマー
You're probably wondering what that intro was about. I can explain. Hi there! My name's Imported Cheese, and I make Pokemon videos on YouTube. Unfortunately. This video is actually supposed to be a review of the newest mainline Pokemon games, Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet. I actually had a whole lot of videos planned about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I mean, this is a Pokemon channel. Why wouldn't I talk about the newest, freshest entries in the series? I was going to do a full Gen 9 starter analysis video. I actually got pretty far into producing it. I recorded a bunch of clips for it. You can see here, I was gonna be serving you a knuckle sandwich. It was gonna be great. But in the end, it's actually going to be nothing, because I can't. It's actually kind of crazy that several years into producing Pokemon content, I've never actually made a state of Pokemon video. Well, here it is. Pokemon's reputation has plummeted to the point where when I meet people in real life and they ask the go-to question, "Oh, what do you do?" I dare not utter the phrase, Poketuber. I just say that I'm a professional video editor, or a freelance content creator for the Google Corporation. Which is technically true. There are 3 topics that I want to cover today. The first is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. This is not a review. I'm about 2 years late to that train, and other people will have done it already in far more detail than I could hope to, but I do want to talk about it a little bit. The second topic will be the Pokemon fandom itself, what types of Pokemon fans there are, and also where I myself fall within those categorizations. And the final topic, the part of the video I imagine that most people will stop watching at, I want to talk about what it means to be a full-time Pokemon YouTuber, and what it's like to try and create content about a franchise that is so obviously and objectively terrible, and yet has never been more successful. Now, let me be clear. The bulk of this video is going to be mega minor levels of negative. Ultimately, I want to emphasize that I'm Team Plusle. My goal is to have you coming away from this video believing, as I do, that not only was Pokemon good, it was the best. Now you can call me a Gen 1er. You can even call me a Gen Whiner. But believe me, back in my day, we were all Gen winners. Let's talk about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet for the Nintendo Switch. I want to lead with what I enjoyed about the game, because it would be unfair to completely gloss over the parts that Game Freak did right. I liked how by building a very specific sausage sandwich, you could actually catapult yourself into the stratosphere. The fact that this is somehow possible is a marvel to me, and it was the highlight of my playthrough. If you'd like to join the Paldea space program yourself, I actually have a tutorial about how to do it right here. Alright, let's talk about the negatives. Graphics and performance. I don't really know what I have to say about this. Use your eyes, or maybe don't, that might be better for your sanity. Look at this! If your eyes could puke, they would. You actually might IRL just because of the motion sickness you get from the constant stuttering and frame drops. It is no exaggeration to say that at its worst, this game looks like a Nintendo 64 game. This is a real screenshot from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Okay, well, Mario's not actually in it, but the rest of the image is undoctored. At best, this game barely scratches mid-tier GameCube levels of visuals. This game looks categorically worse than Super Mario Sunshine, a game that I played at select McDonald's playpens that had GameCubes. Aside from the constant frame drops and occasional insane bugs, this game crashes non-stop. During my playthrough of the main game and the DLC, I had a double-digit number of crashes to the home screen. It actually became a game to try and crash it, which was a lot easier than I thought it would be. In a way, this combo of putrid visuals and mind-bogglingly awful performance is kind of impressive. Game Freak are the masters of untapped potential. Usually, in order to choose good graphics, you have to sacrifice good performance. But not with Game Freak. You get to choose both bad graphics and bad performance. Well, to be fair, Pokemon games have never been about the graphics or the performance. Okay, let's talk about the gameplay then. Back when I got the power, Nintendo power, I remember reading a review describing Pokemon as stale and distilling the gameplay down to nothing but a series of menus. This review was about Pokemon Fire Red 21 years ago. And in the intervening years, nothing has changed. In fact, things have gotten worse. Why did they remove set mode? Why can't I skip animations anymore? This isn't exactly an Attack on Titan chase scene. I don't need to see this crap. And this is something I'm keenly aware of because I have to edit Pokemon videos, which means I have to scrub through a lot of Pokemon battle footage. My god, they're boring! Because nothing happens for so much of the actual time that you're playing. When Pokemon miss moves, they just stand there. You read the text box that tells you what happened. This isn't a tabletop game. Come on, let me see something. When you score a critical hit, an RNG-dependent spike in the excitement of the battle, it's just a text box. Well, at least they put an exclamation point. So the battles are bollocks. What else is in the game? Well, before each gym battle, you have a special challenge, and each one has its own flavor of both broken and boring. This Simon Says game, you can actually stall by just mashing the incorrect option. There's no real reason to do this, but it's pretty funny that this is even possible. This olive pushing minigame just looks kind of ridiculous, and after the minigame, you can actually use the overworld olive to not quite reach space. Gonna need the sausages for that one. And the snow racing minigame has negative gameplay. The only way you can lose is by actively controlling it. If you do nothing, you win. How'd we do? Hey, we won! How's that for efficient streaming? There's an entirely new mechanic in the form of auto-battling. You use this at the star bases, and I don't think it's hyperbole to say that this is the worst gameplay I've experienced in my entire life. You mash the shoulder buttons while your Pokemon auto-battles, and the game turns into a PowerPoint presentation. You could literally do this blindfolded. And I'm not just saying that, okay? I'm blind, not deaf.
Are there bugs nearby? You dare speak to me? Imprisoned for 10,000 frames. You dare speak to me? Hardly a challenge.
Now you might say that this game is actually ambitious because it's the first open world Pokemon game where you can go left or right. But if you don't go the right way, you instantly die because there's no level scaling. So what's the point of making it open world? You can wander around the most desolate, empty fields I've ever seen in an open world game. And there's no respite from that either because there are no interiors to buildings. I didn't have the highest expectations for this game, but I could never have even fathomed them removing indoors. And people often complain that open world games have boring, mind-numbing filler quests. Well, Game Freak did one better. There's no quests at all. So what are you complaining about? Well, to be fair, Pokemon games have never been about the gameplay. I'm here for the story. Okay, let's talk about the story. Much like the rarest Dunsparces, the story is split up into 3 segments: Victory Road, Starfall Street, and Path of the Titans. Victory Road is just gym battles. There's no story. I guess there's Nimona. She's Goku. That's it. Starfall Street is the most boring, boilerplate, cookie-cutter story about school bullying, featuring kids who I don't even think would be bullied. Maybe the guy who talks like a Naruto character, but he's actually a ninja, so I think he'd be kind of cool. And there's this kid who's like, oh no, I'm too rich, oh. Then there's Path of the Titans, which follows your friend/rival, Arvis, who did nothing wrong, by the way. This is the fan favorite part of the story because you're helping a guy's sick dog. To me, this just comes across as very lazy and emotionally manipulative. They do this in other games too. Ooh, Ellie kills dogs, so she's bad. Oh, but Abby, she pets dogs, so she's good. Well, I don't like dogs. This ain't gonna work on me. It doesn't help any of these stories that they're all hampered by presentation that is at least 2 decades out of date. Stiff animations, text boxes, no voice acting. Silver lining is that the copy-pasted animations and cutscenes do make for some pretty funny moments, such as when Arvis here gives Great Tusk a colonoscopy. Well, Mr. Great Tusk, I've got bad news and I've got good news. The bad news is that I've found some malignant polyps, so your days are numbered. Good news is that Ghost is a great type. Once you complete the 3 storylines, they converge and conclude in The Way Home within Area Zero. I think fans and haters alike will agree that this is by far the best part of the game. It's also the most linear part of the open world game. That's pretty funny. You'll often hear that it really feels like you're adventuring with a party of pals as you squint to try and read the white dialogue against the incredibly oppressive bloom effects. I feel like there's a solution to this issue. If you enjoyed the sudden tone shift in the end of the game, then I have a recommendation for you. It's called the entire genre of JRPGs, where they've been doing this with better characters, better stories, better gameplay, and voice acting for decades. Wow. To be fair, Pokemon has never been about the story. It's always been about... Then what is Pokemon about? You get the worst visuals, the worst gameplay, the worst story. You get to play the games with your childhood favorite creatures? Well, not anymore. Half of them are gone. Is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet the worst game I've played in my life? No. That would be Detective Pikachu Returns.
I want a divorce.
What?
But context is important. I will bet you 999 Gimmighoul coins that no matter when you are watching this video, you can hop onto Steam and find dozens, hundreds, thousands of games that are objectively worse than Scarlet and Violet. Either blatant asset flip scams, or maybe a junior developer, hobbyist, just trying to dip their toes into programming, maybe not quite landing on their feet. Pokemon is the most successful franchise in history. Not most successful video game, most successful IP. Every other studio does so much more with so much less. Considering the financials of Pokemon, and yes, I know the merchandise is the majority of it, we should be getting the best visuals, the best gameplay, the best stories. But instead, the standards for Pokemon games are so low that they take double damage from Earthquake. Let's pull an Onyxia and take a deep breath. You might be wondering, very reasonably, why you have to be mad? It's just a game. And yes, in the grand scheme of things, Scarlet and Violet is a video game that I didn't think was very good. It's not the end of the world. However, for me, somebody whose livelihood is making Pokemon videos, the quality of the video games directly affects me, far more so than you as a viewer, so please excuse the 120 base power outrage. I'm realizing now I never actually talked about the DLC, the Teal Mask, and the Indigo Disc. The DLC is what people said was going to fix the performance issues and pad out the post-game. Didn't do either of these things. In many ways, it was actually even worse than the base game. It was so bad that I sacrificed my soul to the Levin sword and walked around in public with slices of bread taped to my legs and shoulders for your entertainment, because I didn't think people would watch otherwise. To wrap up the review segment of this video, there's a lot of words you can use to describe Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Rushed, inept, unacceptable. I'm going to go with insulting. I think it is insulting that Game Freak served us this slop and expected us to take it. Step on up, Tippix, Spoinks, and LeChonks, and get your fill. I got more coming down the trough. And you want to know the worst part? They were right. Pokemon fans looked at the slop, guzzled it down, and asked for seconds. Let's talk about Pokemon fans. Now, based on my survey work in the wilds of the internet, I have identified 3 main types of Pokemon fans. The first would be Pokemon fans. As in, people who play the games and enjoy them. There's really no polite way to say this, so I'm not even gonna try and say it nicely. I wish my standards were as low as yours. Life would be so much easier. The only way I can fathom somebody enjoying a Switch-era Pokemon game is if they literally have never played another video game in their lives. Maybe Candy Crush. In that case, you might think that games are just like this. That they're really ugly, and buggy, and boring. But no, it's just Pokemon games. This entire franchise is a blight on the Nintendo name. There are no other triple or even double A franchises that come anywhere near to looking this unabashedly ass. I'm not just exaggerating to push my own agenda here. The technical state of Scarlet and Violet was so dire that Nintendo had to issue a formal public apology. This is historic. They have never done this for any other first or second party title. Now, of course, performance never improved. If anything, the DLC areas actually had worse performance, despite being in more enclosed areas. Try and figure that one out. But at least they made a statement, which the super fans can point to and say, hey, they're listening and they're working on it. If you had Scarlet and Violet, and you changed nothing else except for swapping the Pokemon with Digimon, the world at large would clown on this, as it deserves. The Pokemon Fanbase in particular are relentless bootlickers. You might even say heavy-duty bootlickers. And I think I can explain why. Pokemon has been on a steady downward spiral for over a decade at this point. When Game Freak does things like remove all of your favorite Pokemon and replace them with ice cream and literal trash. I like the Gen 5 games, but the Gen 5 haters were right. These designs suck. When Game Freak does things like remove the post-game and replace it with an insult. When they do things like remove the last third of the game and replace it with nothing, but that won't stop them from selling you the exact same game twice, 2 years later. When Game Freak does things like remove half the Pokemon. When Game Freak does things like remove interiors. People will hem and haw and holler on the forums. They'll ask, who would put up with any of this crap? And then you know what they do? They leave. Why would you stick around for this debacle? You wouldn't. You would just leave and go play a good game, which is most of them that aren't Pokemon. It's kind of like how with hand sanitizer, 99.9% of the poison types die. And that 0.1% that remains, you're never getting them. And they just keep getting stronger and stronger as the games keep getting worse and worse. As you might imagine, the catalyst for me wanting to talk about the Pokemon fandom was the recent Pokemon Presents featuring actual gameplay of Legend Z to A. I knew from the first frame that it was over, because this gate is a reused asset from the school in Scarlet and Violet. It's over. We can once again see Game Freak's technical wizardry on display. Buildings where the balconies and windows are just 2D textures. You've got to use a teleporter to warp to the top of the building because we already know that Game Freak cannot handle the futuristic tech known as the ladder without destroying the space-time continuum itself. Here's a Reddit post comparing the disappointing visuals of Legend Z to A to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I saw this exact post about Legends Arceus, except instead of 8 years, it said 5. I'm realizing I never talked about Legends Arceus, which is far and away the best modern Pokemon game. It's the worst third-person shooter I've ever played in my life. Would have been great if it came out in 2002, but it came out in 2021. It is absolutely hilarious to compare this trailer to Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, a game running on the same system. This comparison has got me feeling that Pokemon fans are on a whole nother planet. To frame this in a video game fandom context, Pokemon fans are the FIFA fans of RPGs. They'll take anything and they'll like it. It's actually worse than FIFA fans because FIFA's not selling. The soccer game fans aren't the real suckers here. I had to call it soccer because football doesn't sound like sucker and half my viewers are Americans. Since I'm so clearly dissatisfied with Pokemon, you might be wondering why I haven't joined the others in the exodus for greener pastures. Well, we'll get there. Let's talk about the second group of Pokemon fans. Pokemon fans. Or else. This is mostly referring to Pokemon content creators who may or may not like Pokemon, but they definitely can't say anything that's wrong with it. Otherwise, Game Freak's gonna hear and they're not gonna be happy about it. I can't really begrudge these larger creators for the relentlessly positive stance they've adopted because they've got a good thing going. The sales numbers show casual Pokemon fans are the overwhelming majority. Why would you want to alienate them by saying that the game is bad? When you insult something that somebody likes, unless they have Magic Guard, they're gonna take indirect damage as well. In regards to Pokemon, being a hater is a really bad business decision. But some people do it anyway, so let's talk about the final group of Pokemon fans, the haters. There are several Pokemon channels out there that never got the memo that Gen 5 is over. All they do is spam outrage, and it's not really working. Pokemon is uniquely ill-suited to rage-bait content because the heavy-duty bootlicker fanbase is so huge, and because the flaws of Pokemon are so obvious and apparent and stale. Pokemon has bad graphics, Pokemon has bad gameplay, Game Freak is lazy, greedy, and inept. This has been the case for over a decade. I've heard it already. I don't need to hear it again. Would I consider myself a hater? Well, given the things I've said so far in this video, I'm sure you consider me a hater, but I really don't want to be one. It's YouTube that's forcing me to do this. Let's peel back the curtain a little bit and talk about the reality of content creation on YouTube.com. My goal as a creator is to get you to watch as many of my videos for as long as possible. You might think this would involve making a good video, whatever that means, but the most important step by far is the title and thumbnail. It's a well-known fact that negative videos and topics get far more views than their positive counterparts. You can see this distilled to its clickbait essence when you look at a top 10 video versus a worst 10 video. Almost always, worst 10 is going to be more popular. This isn't a YouTube thing, it's more of a human thing. We react more strongly to negative emotions. And the mysterious, unknowable YouTube algorithm becomes a lot less mysterious when you replace the word algorithm with audience. The algorithm just shows the audience what they want to see. And usually, people enjoy recreational outrage. But there's a reason why, when it's literally 1984, it's the 2-minute hate and not the 24-hour hate. At a certain point, outrage stops becoming cathartic, and it just kind of becomes depressing and poisonous. I will admit I'm as guilty as anyone of indulging in negative videos. I love them. Many of my own videos contain pockets of extreme negativity. It's simply a lot more fun to say that Ariados sucks ass and to wonder, what were they thinking? Than to hear that, yeah, Swampert's very strong. The issue for me as a content creator is that watching an hour-long video about a game that sucks is really different than making a 1-hour video about a game that sucks. Especially when it's a game that you want to like. I'm sure the process is different for every creator, but for me, a mostly one-man operation who has to write the script, record the voiceover, get the video footage, and do all of the editing by myself. For every minute of edited video that you see, behind the scenes, it took me about an hour. So for this hour-long challenge video about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, I spent about 60 hours steeped in a black morass of despair and hatred. It just destroys you. Extreme, toxic levels of negativity are simply unavoidable when speaking candidly about modern Pokemon. The game is so obviously broken and buggy. Am I not gonna talk about it in the script? Are you guys seeing this? How can I not address this? Never did I imagine that part of the challenge run would be trying to get the game to run, and then trying to will myself to complete it. But you hunker down and you power through it, because at the end of the day, when you sell your sanity, it fetches a high price. I wish. If I were to pay someone else the effective wage I earned for making this video, it would be illegal. So in my case, outrage most certainly does not pay the bills. Given that this video that I worked on for so long was an abject financial catastrophe, and that most of my edited videos don't actually do that much better, you might be wondering how I'm even able to talk to you? Or you'd at least expect that I wouldn't have any of this pudge. Well, there's 2 reasons I'm able to do this full time. First, it's the best evolution of all, the Patreon. Huge thanks to the Patreon subscribers you see on screen now. The steady income from this is what allows me to take financial hits on edited videos. Your support is what makes it financially viable for me to buy props for and then spend time editing complete videos. The other reason I'm able to do this for a living is because I often don't do it edited. I do it live! Here's the revenue from an edited challenge video. And here's the revenue from a 12-hour Pokemon livestream. Challenge video took me 50, 60 hours. You know exactly how long the livestream took me. 12 hours. keep in mind that this is only the ad revenue that the VOD earned after the live stream itself ended. If you want to account for live donations, then the number looks like— oh my god! Now, this is an extreme example because the entire theme of this live stream was that I was scamming you. I guess it worked, thanks. Usually, the revenue on live streams is much more modest, although all of it is appreciated, and it does all add up, thank you. So although I still enjoy making edited videos, you're literally watching one right now, there is immense financial incentive to do as many live streams as possible and get as many eyeballs on them as possible. You can sort of think of the edited videos as the rotisserie torchics of the channel. We gotta lure him into the door with green glitches. And then we hit him with 12 hours of Pokemon TCG for the Game Boy Color. I hope your ping is good, because otherwise you're gonna kill the raid as we polarity shift here. Even though human nature and YouTube strongly incentivize negative videos, I don't really make money with videos anyway. And it turns out that viewers really like positive live streams. And you can call me Spidops, because here is where we weave a web that ties it all back into how Pokemon now sucks but didn't used to. Here's the view count for the first episode of the live Pokemon Scarlet playthrough that I did. This is the newest mainline release of the primary theme of my YouTube channel. I started my playthrough the moment the Midnight Lock released on my Switch, and keep in mind that I live in the future. I live in Japan, so the only other English speakers who would have beaten me to starting a playthrough would be the Aussies. And after the comments I got on my Tropius video, I have promised to never LARP as an Aussie again. Good eye. Now let me be clear. This view count for a live stream is extremely good. I don't mean to sound ungrateful here. I'm not saying that this live stream was a failure. But let's take a look at the numbers for Pokemon Stadium 2, a 24-year-old Nintendo 64 game that I just decided would be fun to play one weekend. You see the problem? These two view counts should not even be close, and they're also reversed. Why in the world is the newest major Pokemon release being outshone by a Nintendo 64 game so old it can legally drink in the United States? And the answer is because Scarlet and Violet sucks, and Pokemon Stadium 2 is the best Pokemon game ever made. The arguments that modern Pokemon fans use to justify the state of the franchise are built upon pillars of soft sand. They will relentlessly gaslight you. No, Pokemon was never good. No, it's just nostalgia. You just grew up. Don't call me a grown-up. I'm 30 years young. Pokemon was great. It was the best. It's not nostalgia. Well, how do I know it's not nostalgia? Well, if it was nostalgia and I replayed it, then I would realize that it wasn't as good as I remembered. This has happened to me before. When I was the exact same age as when I was playing Pokemon, I loved Sonic Adventure 2, but I replayed that game and you know what? It's ass! It's terrible! The controls are super slippery. The Master Emerald shard hunts make me envy Maria because she doesn't have to see this, and the sound mixing is amateur at best. You couldn't pay me to replay this game. In sharp contrast, when I replayed Pokemon Stadium 2, I ended up rediscovering why I chose to make a Pokemon-themed channel in the first place. It's not just the amazing animations for each and every Pokemon. Every aspect of this game is lovingly crafted. I don't think there's a more clear example than the fact that live stream viewers, the most ADHD, hey, come on, do something, viewer group on the platform, live stream viewers were telling me that, yeah, battling is cool, but can you go to the trainer school and read the tutorials? Viewers were actually asking me to read through hours and hours of text tutorials about a game that we already know how to play. I think Headmaster Earl said it best himself. This is not a waste of time. I'm not just saying that I enjoyed Pokemon Stadium 2. I have the numbers to prove that the viewers did as well. The most important number on YouTube is this: average viewer watch time. The longer somebody watches your video or your live stream, the better it was in YouTube's eyes. I can say with confidence that live stream viewers dislike negativity and like positivity because I have two extreme examples. Here is the least successful live stream series on my channel, Detective Pikachu 2. Keep in mind that my audience is comprised of people who like making fun of bad Pokemon games. Here's the worst Pokemon game, and they couldn't watch it. I can't say I blame them. I didn't want to be there either. This game was so bad that when I abruptly ended one of the streams, running away saying that I forgot about a real-life engagement, people thought I was joking because I wanted to run away from the game. No, it turns out I actually forgot about a real-life engagement. I was almost in huge trouble. I was still on time, but in Japan, when you're on time, you're late. Now let's take a look at the stats for the best game, Pokemon Stadium 2. Now that's real good. That's about as good as it gets on my channel. And there's another thing that made the Pokemon Stadium 2 live streams far and away the most successful. If you look at any of my live stream series, there's a very clear pattern. The first live stream has about double the views of every subsequent live stream. So if the first live stream gets 10 views, the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth will all get 5. Maybe there's a little spike at the finale. For basically only Pokemon Stadium 2, the view counts for Part 1 and 2 are basically the same. There's no drop-off. That's how you know this is a good game. So, problem solved, right? If Pokemon Stadium 2 is the game that my viewers want, then I should just play Pokemon Stadium 2. Forever. Were it so easy. Once you're established in your niche on YouTube, that's kind of it. You can't just put on a stupid hat and completely change your type. I've conducted several viewer polls, and the view counts of both videos and live streams alike all support the fact that my viewers, the people who watch Imported Cheese, they want Pokemon content. So in that sense, it's a lot like I'm stuck in a Pokemon prison. Hey, that's the video title. And Pokemon the franchise is dying. Pokemon has been on the decline for a while. The straw that broke the camera-up's back for every former Pokemon fan will be different, but many would argue that the leap to home consoles on the Switch and the Pokemon snapping of half of the Pokedex was the biggest decline in quality. Almost everyone, current Pokemon fans included, would agree that there was a noticeable decline in overall quality, starting with the leap to 3D on the 3DS in Gen 6. But I'm gonna argue that the peak of Pokemon, and the only time it had the potential to truly generate lifelong diehard fans like me, was Gen 2. And it's all been downhill since. Once upon a time, you didn't need excuses to justify why you were playing Pokemon. Pokemon was the best contemporary game you could be playing. And as early as Gen 3, the cracks started to show. I'm not saying there weren't any good games after Gen 3. In fact, my favorite mainline Pokemon games are Heart Gold and Soul Silver, huge shock, that's Gen 4, and Pokemon Black and White 2, which is Gen 5. But it's undeniable that starting in Gen 3, Pokemon was starting to fall behind the competition. You could play Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, it's a fine game. Or you could play Golden Sun, an amazing game! Isaac for Smash! Ragnarok! And this is not just professional internet nitpicker super cynic imported cheese saying this stuff. I noticed this stuff when I was a kid too. I remember the first time I booted up Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. I was insanely excited because it came out just around the exact same time as my birthday. Picked Torchic, got into battle, and... Why don't the Pokemon move anymore? I thought this was the Game Boy Advanced. Why did it get worse? Little did little me know that 2 steps back, 1 step in the right direction would become the slogan of the entire franchise from that point onward. Yeah, we can add some cool new stuff, but not without taking away stuff that worked for no reason. Another moment when part of the magic of Pokemon died for me was playing Pokemon Colosseum back on the GameCube. I didn't even reach the title screen. It was this that got me. The Pokemon Company, with this sterile corporate jingle and background. Now, I was raised in a Muslim household, which is why I always thought the Grinch was the good guy. The only thing that Christmas specials did was piss me off, because it seemed like everyone else was having a great time. This screen here was my Delabird's Not Real moment. Oh, this is a product made by the Pokemon Company that my mom exchanged hours of labor for because she thought it would make me happy. Of course, at the time, I didn't think any of that. I just thought, oh, that's kind of weird. I don't remember seeing that logo. Well, unfortunately for my mom, she bought me Pokemon Colosseum, so I was not happy. That's maybe my most unpopular Pokemon opinion. Guys, Pokemon Colosseum sucks. And this YouTuber with more subs than me agrees. At this point, I've basically given up any and all hope on there ever being an even halfway decent new Pokemon game. At least one made by Game Freak. So not only am I trapped in the Pokemon prison, but my cellmate is a time bomb that is going to destroy my channel and my livelihood once I run out of old Pokemon topics to discuss. How do I defuse the situation? Well, Pokemon ROM hackers have been doing a better job than Game Freak ever did. And while there are a plethora of great ROM hacks and fan games out there, the pickings get slimmer and slimmer with every video I publish, and with every successful hit by the Nintendo Ninjas. The only way to stage a Pokemon prison break is to convince the viewers to flee with me. To test for the size of my core audience, all I have to do is look at the view count of a video that is wildly divorced from Pokemon. So if we look at this video, which has nothing to do with Pokemon, it's about Japanese Q-nuts, we can see that the view count is about 3,000. We can compare it to the view count on this video, Park Souls, FromSoft's next live-action masterpiece, and we can see that it also has about 3,000 views. So 3,000 views is my core audience. These people would watch a video of me picking my nose and say that it's evidence of Mega Nose Pass coming soon. Well, let me be clear. I don't mean that as an insult. Thanks for watching, guys. I do really appreciate it. But being pragmatic here, 3,000 views ain't gonna pay the bills. So if I want to be able to afford bread and not just pictures of it, I'm gonna need to latch on to another franchise. I've tried touching on other franchises, usually without enough success to justify the leap. I thought viewers would like Xenoblade, not so much. Viewers kind of liked Zelda. We might play another Zelda game in the future. I sort of knew viewers wouldn't like Warcraft. I mean, why would they? There's no real connection between that and Pokemon, but I had to do this because I wanted to be a bread knight for the Indigo Disc. However, I think we have identified a franchise that would offer us safe harbor. It's the only franchise where, based on both the view counts and the watch time, the viewers are as passionate about it as Pokemon Stadium 2. I don't know why I'm dragging this out. It's Fire Emblem, you all knew it. The Fire Emblem playthroughs and tier lists, they all do really well. To be honest, the game is just a lot more fun. Fire Emblem 8 Premium tier list someday, guys. I'm working on it, okay? Someday soon. Fire Emblem is gonna bust us out of here. Prison breaks are even a fairly common occurrence in Fire Emblem games. There's the one in Thracia 776, which I won't be playing that anytime soon. But there's also the one in Fire Emblem 9, which we will be playing very soon. This chapter also kind of sucks. The key ingredient we need to stage our Pokemon prison break is that rotisserie chicken. We need that smash hit edited Fire Emblem video to bring in the viewers, and then we're home free. What's the recipe for this chicken? I have no idea. I don't even know if I'm capable of cooking it. I don't even know how I made the glitchy chicken that drew you all in here in the first place. I hope that through the maelstrom of negativity, it's come across that I don't hate Pokemon. I would like to consider myself a Pokemon fan, but please forgive me if after decades of disappointment, I'm not feeling very enthusiastic. I'm feeling a little bit betrayed. They don't hand you an instruction manual when you make a YouTube channel. Back in ancient times, the slogan of YouTube used to be, broadcast yourself. What did I want to talk about? I wanted to talk about Pokemon, my favorite franchise. This whole channel exists in part as a reaction to my crushing disappointment with Pokemon Sword and Shield. This was a game that was so bad, I stopped and thought, wait a minute, what am I doing? Am I really a Pokemon fan? Well, let me try these older games and... okay. Yeah, Sword and Shield just blows. So in the meantime, why don't you join me in my cell here in the Pokemon prison? And we'll watch some more Pokemon content as the bomb continues to tick down. I have to wonder, who put us in Pokemon prison to begin with? Was it the Pokemon fans? Was it the devs? Well, isn't it obvious? It was the jailer all along! Who else could be the mastermind behind this? But for a literal answer as to who built the Pokemon prison thumbnail, it was all yo! Huge thanks! They actually have their own YouTube channel, and wouldn't you know it? They're in the same prison, they also make Pokemon videos. Maybe check them out with the link in the description. And I want to thank the mighty Patreons once again for contributing to the Commissary Fund. It's the reason why I'm able to jerk so frequently even here in prison. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you to everybody for watching, and hopefully someday we will breathe the free air together. Hopefully someday soon, this thing's gonna blow.